Local programming on KRWG made possible in part by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to Fronteras, a Changing America. I'm Edmundo Resendez. Recently, Dennis Montoya of Las Cruces was elected as the State Director of the League of United Latino American Citizens, LULAC. Dennis Montoya is our guest today, and he is here to discuss future plans for LULAC in New Mexico. Dennis, welcome to Fronteras.
Edmundo, buenas tardes. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you because I think that, I got excited when I found out that somebody from Las Cruces was going to be the executive director of a statewide organization, and called you up and said, let's have a conversation about what's going on with LULAC and how the issues affecting our communities are being addressed by LULAC. And so let's start off the conversation with discussing what are some of the issues that New Mexico LULAC and you, as the new executive director, will be addressing in the upcoming year?
Well, first of all, I'm not the first person from Las Cruces to be the state director. Our outgoing state director is Jessica Martinez, and she remains the director for about another week until our national convention, and she is from Las Cruces. She's not continuing in the role because she's going to law school. So she has set the stage for some very exciting programs that I intend to carry forward. LULAC is the nation's oldest, largest, and most respected organization that looks out for the civil rights of Latinos. However, we're not limited to the civil rights arena. We've been best known for civil rights, but we've been very active in economic development, in education. Our scholarship programs in New Mexico and throughout the country are very active. So those are some of the areas that we'll be continuing to work in.
Let's talk about economic development, and I think that's a great way to really focus the conversation. What are some economic development issues in some of these communities where Latinos exist throughout the state? Jobs has got to be a leading issue that affects economic development.
Edmundo, jobs are probably our number one issue. Recent statistics released indicate that as high a percentage as 44% of our community is chronically unemployed. That is a huge unemployment index. LULAC is very concerned about this. LULAC has spearheaded initiatives, for example, right now in the Albuquerque area, mediated by the U.S. Department of Justice. We have talks going on with Kirtland Air Force Base, where Latino representation in the workforce has slipped from a high of close to 30% in the 1980s, all the way down to almost single digits at the present time. These are situations that cause us a great deal of concern. In the Albuquerque market, Kirtland Air Force Base is a huge employer, so that's very negatively impacting our community. Here in southern New Mexico, we're doing a little better. White Sands has maintained Latino employment statistics well into the double digits, and we think they're getting better. So we're trying to get Kirtland to take a look at White Sands and emulate what they're doing right.
When I think of unemployment, I always think in my mind the generations. How do you look at unemployment with the Latino youth, with the older demographic, and education? Where's it all? How does it all tie in?
Well, certainly one of the demographics that causes LULAC concern is the low graduation rates for Latino males in our high schools. Latinas, females, are doing fairly much better than our young men. We're trying to address those root causes. Some of them that we think we have identified have to do with the relevance of education, the focus on testing that may not be in accordance with each student's needs, the alienation that occurs with students who are not receiving out of the educational system what they need to maintain an interest and to move forward. So these are areas that we will be focusing on during my administration.
What is the state of education with the Latino community throughout the state? I mean, again, you mentioned the high dropout rate with boys, with men. How are you looking at the state educational policies with testing, with regards to testing?
One of the things that LULAC has pushed for is a reevaluation of standardized testing and how that is applied, especially in communities with heavily Latino populations. We want the entire philosophy reevaluated. Many educators who have worked under the regime of standardized testing are now very much opposed to it because it is creating an inflexible environment where the educator is not allowed to address the individual needs of students. When individual needs are not addressed, dropout rates increase. So teachers that want to teach the student and not teach for the test are certainly becoming more and more vocal, and we think they have very good points to be made.
What about the language barrier? Do you see a problem with students that don't speak English and only speak Spanish and are learning, the English language?
Well, where the language barrier is present, it certainly creates obstacles for the student, and different school districts deal with that issue with varying degrees of success. I know that in the northern part of the state, there is less attention paid to Spanish speakers on the belief that they're fewer in number, but this is misleading because there are very large communities of Spanish speakers in the Albuquerque area, in Santa Fe, and even further north up in the Taos area. So these are issues that are of concern to LULAC as well, and we're looking to see better studies, better statistics, and more information on how our educational system can reach our Spanish-speaking youth.
Are there any bright spots as it relates to education and the Latino groups?
Certainly. Based in very significant part on LULAC initiatives, our retention rate has been increasing. We're doing better at schools like UNM, NMSU, although it continues to experience diversity issues that need to be addressed, is also doing a reasonably good job of graduating our students once they enter college. At the high school level, our dropout rates are starting to take a downward turn. So these are positive indicators. We need to continue making progress there.
What about role models and an education campaign, to deliver to parents, of these youth to say, this is what they have to look forward to? I mean, how difficult is it for you to reach out to these communities and go into their homes and say, it's important for your son to finish school because, and, to really just talk to them about the importance of education?
Certainly the importance of education, or just the concept of reading books and having books in the house, is a first very vital step in the right direction with respect to education. I grew up in northern New Mexico. I can tell you that I did not have a teacher who was not a Spanish speaker until I was well into junior high. It makes a difference in the student's self-concept if the person teaching that student is someone they can identify with. So we want to see more bilingual teachers in the classroom. We want to see more culturally relevant education going on, and certainly all of that has a lot to do with reaching parents.
Let's continue with talking about success stories, because I think that's what I would like the show to have today. Is, what other success stories are there in the the issue of economic development? What success stories are you seeing, in different parts of the state?
Throughout New Mexico, we have many great success stories involving our Latino entrepreneurs, our Latino professionals, going back many, many years. We've had our people succeed in the field of biomedical engineering, pharmaceuticals, engineering, architecture, the professions. Right here in Las Cruces, we have very accomplished dentists, medical doctors, architects, engineers. What we need is to showcase these success stories that are everywhere in New Mexico, because with as many Latinos as we have, and with the success that some of us have enjoyed, there is no reason for so many of our people to be losing ground in terms of economic development, employment opportunities. We export way too many educated, bright, talented professionals, young people who get an education here and then can't find a job here. So we need to look at those.
And again, that's the big question of how do you reach out to the students that are choosing to stay and encourage them to be a positive role model in the community so that the tradition continues to go in a positive direction.
Well, LULAC's motto is all for one and one for all. We encourage involvement. We try to provide a forum for people to get involved and to do positive things for their community and for themselves. For example, we have young adult councils. We have one right here at New Mexico State University. I think we have two in Alamogordo, and we have one in Albuquerque that has historically been the nation's largest and most active young adult council. These are young people who are college age. Most of them are college students. They are in turn getting involved in forming youth councils at the high school level. And that's a successful way of inducting new blood into the organization, getting them involved in community building, getting them involved in raising money for scholarships. Many of these young people have been the beneficiaries of scholarships. Now they're raising money for scholarships for others. So when you provide a format for people to be involved, then that awareness increases, that interest and commitment to continuing to do more and better things increases, and we see the results.
We talked about some successes that you've seen. Let's talk about some of the challenges that are out there that you're looking at and almost inheriting. What are some of these challenges, and what are some solutions that may exist to definitely turn them into something positive?
Well, Edmundo, we do have challenges, quite a few, actually. We have many people out there in the larger society who say that we're living in a post-civil rights America. It's really not a post-civil rights America. It's a country where we have made some very significant advances in addressing civil rights issues. But if in the state of New Mexico, where we are the largest ethnic group, we're truly not a minority in New Mexico, if we still suffer from the rates of unemployment, the rates of dropping out of school, the overrepresentation in the criminal justice system that we have, then we know that we have not reached anything near the status that we should be achieving. So we're facing these challenges. A big part of LULAC's mission is to address these challenges head on, to call people to account as we're doing with Kirtland Air Force Base in Albuquerque, where we have Department of Justice mediated talks going on right now. Without this kind of activity, we could continue to lose ground. But there's no good reason why Kirtland Air Force Base should have slipped from employment representation in the 30th percentile all the way down to the 10th percentile in a couple of decades. The main reason is that not enough vigilance was applied back when we made some progress. We thought we had achieved what we needed to achieve, and we forgot that the watchdog function has to be fulfilled also. If there's nobody watching the store, things start to happen in the wrong direction.
Having learned that lesson, what are you doing to deal with the issue?
Well, we are continuing to outreach to major employers, to institutions of higher learning. We are continuing to educate the public. We're continuing to talk about these issues. We are continuing to encourage involvement by our own population, because our community is the key to our success.
On a national level, what issues are important for LULAC to address?
Immigration is certainly one of the top issues that LULAC has addressed historically and currently. Economic development, education, these are the big three. What we have done and continue to do is to encourage a pathway to citizenship for people who have invested their lives in this country and may be undocumented. Their children may have been born and raised in this country. They deserve full opportunities. Youngsters who are brought here at a very early age deserve the full opportunity to develop as Americans. LULAC advocates on behalf of these goals. In education, we need to continue to make progress. We need to graduate many more of our youngsters to enter the workforce with full qualifications to qualify for high-paying and skilled jobs. And then we need to continue to advocate for them in the workforce so that once they're qualified, they can actually get hired. In New Mexico, as I mentioned earlier, we export too many of our talented Latinos and Latinas. We need them here.
The brain drain, as they so call it.
The brain drain. And I don't mean to say that we don't have talented people that are still here, but it's very often hard for a young person just starting a family, just getting going, to turn down twice as much pay in California or Texas or Colorado just to remain home. We need to have competitive pay.
Why is it important for LULAC, especially LULAC New Mexico, to address the immigration issue?
Well, immigrants are a very vital part of the American fabric and always have been. They're a very vital part of our Latino cultural fabric here in the Southwest and in New Mexico. The influx of immigrants brings us cultural innovation. It brings us some of the best and the brightest from Mexico and other countries to the South. And it keeps us, in many very significant ways, it keeps us going as a native Latino population. So yes, we want to encourage our immigrant population to incorporate into our communities and contribute.
Often, along with the immigration issue, comes perception problems that develop with politicians in particular, of the Latino and especially the Mexican population. You may have heard Donald Trump, giving some very disparaging remarks as far as people from Mexico being rapists and all of these things that are simply not true. How do we look at the Hispanic population and these misperceptions and try to fix them?
The same way you do with slanderous misperceptions everywhere. You showcase your positive talents. You demonstrate the kinds of contributions that are being made by our population to this country. You talk about what would happen if we had a day without a Mexican. A day without a Mexican in the United States would be disastrous. And some of the same people like Mr. Trump, who out of one side of their mouth are speaking ill of the immigrant population, in other ways are benefiting greatly from the efforts put forth by that population. It's one of the most hard-working and undervalued populations that we have in the United States. As far as criminal activity, there are bad people among all ethnic groups. There is no good data to show that we have more bad people among the Latino immigrant population than among any other group in the United States.
Let's wrap things up talking about education, because I think that is a very important issue. Because here I am thinking you're talking about dropouts, getting the kids to finish high school. Mine is getting them to go into college and take advantage of the educational opportunities that exist. And so how does LULAC go about encouraging students to again get an education and then keep that education here in our state?
There are a couple of different ways we do that, Edmundo. We have been around since 1929. And since 1929, that's 86 years, we have been raising money to assist young people in financing their higher education. We have councils here in New Mexico that are some of our largest and most active, one of them here in Las Cruces, Silver City, Hurley, that focus on raising scholarship monies every year. And every year they will give out between 5 to 15 scholarships to Hispano youth that need that help, that will benefit from it. So we do that, and then we provide a forum for these young people to get involved and remain involved. I mentioned earlier we have one of the largest young adult councils in the country here at UNM in Albuquerque. They continue to be active in recruiting young people from high school level on up, getting them involved and getting them moving forward with their education. For many of us, going to college is a very scary experience. Our parents didn't go to college. Some of us didn't even have an older sibling that went to college. That was my situation. I was the first one in the history of my family to go to college. I think I had one aunt who was a school teacher, so she probably was before me. But other than that, there were very few role models. With LULAC, we can provide role models. We can provide adults that are mentoring these young adult councils. We can provide other young adults who are members of LULAC and succeeding in higher education. So we provide a safer environment for that student in college to participate in as they advance their education.
What's the future for LULAC in New Mexico? How do you go about recruiting youth to attend LULAC meetings and become involved?
Well, we talk to their parents, for one thing. When the parents are involved in LULAC, it greatly increases the probability that the kids will also be involved in LULAC. But even where the parents are not involved, by starting councils on various campuses around the state, we provide that attractor for them. Young people love to congregate. They love to participate in social events. And, in LULAC, we're not all work and hard work and no play. We provide social opportunities. We provide opportunities for recognition. We provide opportunities for growth to these young people. We really strive to provide a positive experience. And we've had some great mentors like the Enlace program at the University of New Mexico. We have mentorship going on in Alamogordo for the young adult councils there. We have mentorship going on here at NMSU. So, just providing the opportunity goes a long way in that direction.
Dennis, what are you looking forward to the most in the upcoming year?
Well, I have great hopes of making our organization more economically self-sufficient. We need to develop our sources of contribution, our sources of income, so that we can continue to help our community for many years into the future. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to forming new councils. We have potential here in Doña Ana County up in Chaparral. We have some very committed community members there who would, I think, benefit from having a LULAC council to complement their other community-oriented activities. We have newly formed councils in Santa Fe. We have new youth councils that are just forming. So I'm looking forward to growing the institution that is LULAC so that we can provide an even greater base for future progress.
Dennis Montoya of Las Cruces, recently elected as the State Director of the League of United Latino American Citizens, LULAC. I want to thank you very much for coming in, and I want to wish you the best of luck in your upcoming term as Executive Director.
Edmundo, thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us on Fronteras today. We look forward to having you with us next week.